So, Namaskara, good evening, Shubha Sanjay, everyone. Very good morning to the panelists and participants from the US. Welcome to DG, past DGs, presidents, past presidents of Rotary, Rotarians, everyone who have joined. We recognize the presence of other doctors who have joined for the meeting. This is a Rotary District 3190 event, organized and stitched together by Chronic Foundation Bangalore, Rotary Bangalore Green Park, and Rotary Bangalore Yelahanka. This is the third in the series of COVID education webinars. While we are seeking solace and rejoice the triumph over the second wave, we would like to be prepared and mindful of what can befall on us. Vaccination is the way to save from the worst. Thoughts and prayers to all the family members and frontline workers we have lost. We had our DG, Nagendra Prasad, to say a few words, but I think he's caught up with some other meeting. In the meantime, I request Prashant Sambargi, who's a socialist, social activist, and an entrepreneur, to conduct the event. I request him to introduce the panelists for the day and facilitate the show further. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhijit. Thank you, Ellargu Namaskara. Bengaluru Ella Antarashtriya Doctors Ge Mattu Karnatakaದಿಂದ ಬಂದಿರತಕ್ಕಂತ ಅನೇಕ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಗೆ ನಮಸ್ಕಾರ. ನನ್ನ ಇವತ್ತಿನ ಇಂಟ್ರೊಡಕ್ಷನ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚಾಗಿ ಆಂಗ್ಲ ಭಾಷೆಯಲ್ಲಿ ಇಂಗ್ಲಿಷ್ ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಇರುತ್ತೆ, ಯಾಕಂದ್ರೆ ನಮಗೆ USA ಇಂದ ಡಾಕ್ಟರ್ಸ್ ಬಂದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. Before I start this interactive program and learning the best practices, I would like to just give an information which is valid and very important thing. We have crossed 25 crores of vaccination in India as of 6 o'clock today. That's the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare's data, which I'm giving you. Like Abhijit said, vaccination is the only solution, and we're going to speak more on that. We got doctors from US. Let me welcome Dr. Padma Prakash and Dr.
Hi.
Chandrasekhar, Dr. Mallikarjun Swamy, Dr. Rakesh Sharma. And on the technical issues, I'll be having Dr. Chandrasekhar with me to take the question answers, because they're more technical and more medical. So my colleague will be Dr. Chandrasekhar. Before we start, like Abhijit said, yes, I've been a COVID warrior for the first wave, and now the second wave. I don't know how many waves are going to come. We're going to speak of third wave. Doctors are going to tell us, is there a fourth wave or a fifth wave? We don't know. So there are specialists, there are people who understood this entire thing. So I would like Dr. Chandrasekhar to introduce a few of the other doctors with their achievements and take it forward.
Yeah, thank you, Prashant. First of all, I would like to welcome Dr. Padma Prakash. She is a leading pediatrician at Bangalore. She would be speaking first about the COVID implications in children and about the oncoming pediatric COVID wave. Over to you, Dr. Padma.
Good evening to all. Thanks for the organizers for giving me this opportunity to speak about this COVID-19. And good evening to all the fellow panelists, and good evening to the audience who are present here, and to the parents as well. It's really giving me very pleasure to spread this information. Even though many of us, we just go through the social media, what is COVID-19, how it is a pandemic, it's an RNA virus. Even you talk to a small children, they are aware of it, how it spreads. So, but to elaborate this, I just want to put up with the ICMR guidelines as well as the guidelines from the Indian Academy of Pediatrics that we have come up with. I'm going to talk more about the clinical features in children. First, we have categorized into four categories in children. Like first is asymptomatic or a mild infection in the children. Second is moderate, and third is severe. There is a huge difference between the first wave and the second wave. When you look into the data as well, I would like to give the statistics. So from 2000 March 2020 to 2021 March, we have taken a data, especially in Karnataka, that only 27,000 children were affected from 0 to 9 years. Whereas from the children of 10 to 19 years, the data says almost 67,000 children have been affected. So it's almost nearing 1 lakh. Whereas the data says that 0 to 9 years from March 2021 to May 2021, it is almost 47,000, and 10 to 19 years, it is 1,05,000. So there is a huge increase of number of children getting affected just within 2 months, that is March to May. So it shows that the children are getting affected in the second wave. Second one, when I just, apart from this data, I would like to give a more valuable information to the parents why there is huge difference of increase in the number of cases in children during the second wave. See, when we look at retrospectively, there were 4 points that we noticed why there is a surge of cases among children. The first one was most of the children who were positive had a positive contact at home, like whether it's a father, mother, grandfather, grandmother, or any of the sibling. So that is a number one, because most of the patients, they opted for home isolation during second wave, which was very scientific, and success rate was very, very huge. But children were more affected because the positive contact with the COVID positive patient. Number two, when we go to the rural areas, the malnutrition was a major cause for getting affected by the children. Number three, there is lagging behind of this national universal immunization programs. So many people, they were afraid to go to the clinics or the bigger centers to get the normal vaccination. See, normal vaccination plays a major role to prevent other infections as well. Like example, DPT, measles, pulse polio, typhoid vaccine. Like this, there was a lagging of children getting taking this vaccine. Number four, of course, the vaccines are still in trial in India. Of course, in America and UK, more than 3 lakhs children have taken the COVID second shot as well. But in India, we are giving a trial in Belgaum, AIIMS Delhi, and AIIMS at Patna. So because the trials are still on, so there is no vaccination to children who are from newborn till 18 years. So these are the 4 major reasons that we are expecting the third wave in children. That is because they are vulnerable, they're susceptible group. So when coming to the clinical features, when we say asymptomatic cases, we could recognize because there is history of positive patient at home. Number 2, accidental detection with the RT-PCR. So they are the asymptomatic cases. We are just suspecting it could be 80 to 85%. So a case they must have got infection, got unnoticed. Whereas in mild infections, so as usual, the clinical features will be history of fever, sore throat, cough, or they can have myalgia, that is body aches, not eating well, they're not getting hydrated themselves. So these are the mild clinical features. Later part in the questionnaires, I can answer you what is the line of management. So coming to the moderate cases, there is little severe. So mild case can get resolved itself, or it can proceed to the moderate. In moderate cases, we get increase in cough or intermittent persistent high-grade fever, or they can have even fatigue, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, or tummy ache. So these are the moderate cases. Along with it, they can get saturation less than 94 degrees. When you look into the pulse oximeter, so they can have saturations, low saturations, and increased breathing rate, like breathlessness, respiratory rate, what we call, it will be increasing. So these are the moderate cases. And when we come to the severe cases, so the child will have rapid or the fast breathing, they can go to shock, the saturation can be again less than 90, they are unable to breathe, breathing difficulty will increase, or some children even they can have convulsions, or shock with the need immediate intervention, where the child has to get admitted. So this is the clinical features of children from mild, moderate, severe. And I want to, one more point I want to narrate here is the difference between the first wave and the second wave. The clinical features were mainly more of gastrointestinal manifestations, like vomiting and diarrhea was more in the second wave. And the children, the admission rate, even though we say mild and moderate cases, mild is almost 85%, moderate can be 6 to 7%. The critical illness where the child requires intensive care admissions, oxygen dependency, or a ventilator care is only just 2 to 3%. So this is the progression. So the parents have to be very careful when to approach a doctor, when to seek a medical professional help. Of course, no, definitely no to self-medications. But this is what the points I just emphasize the parents, that how, when they have to approach the healthcare worker, depending upon the clinical signs and symptoms, where we divide them into asymptomatic or mild, moderate, and severe.
Dr. Padma Prakash, you gave a very nice input of the statistical data. March 2020 to March 2021, we had something around a lakh of children between age group of 0 to 18. And within 2 months, we have 1.5 of March 2021 and April, you were given a statistics of 1.5 lakhs. Now, and you also gave the input that there's a trial run happening in Belgaum, that's my hometown, and there's a trial run happening in Delhi. Now, we'll go ahead with those data in the later part of the things. I would like Dr. Chandrasekhar to differentiate between the second wave and the third wave.
Just a small intervention. I'm sorry, Dr. Chandrasekhar, I'll just take a minute. I welcome District Governor Nagendra Prasad to the forum. I would like to invite him to just say a few words before we carry on with our session.
Oh, thank you, sir. Good evening, Ellargu Namaskara.
Namaskara, sir.
Yes, I think on a Sunday, I think having people here, first of all, is difficult, and especially this COVID-19 is something which is going on from past 1 year. And I know that next wave they're all talking about for the children, youngsters, our next generation, which is more important for us, each one of us. I think having more webinars like this really gives a lot of insight to the parents and also to all the COVID warriors who are working in the front line. And just to tell you about this COVID now in the district, we have a small COVID war room which started about 1.5 months back. And we have tried and saved many lives by connecting them to the hospitals. And also, we have been doing counseling. There are a lot of doctors who have been doing counseling, and whoever asks us for the counseling, we connect them to our doctors, own Rotarians. And we have been doing this. I think this is an excellent service, at least to tell people what they have to do and when and what. This is a great program. Let me congratulate the Rotary Yelahanka, the team of Yelahanka, who have put up this on a continuous basis, bringing in doctors from abroad. And really, when we talk of doctors from abroad, I should thank them. Especially recent times, we have been getting a lot of donations as oxygen concentrators. Even yesterday morning, I was there in one of the Rotary programs of Malgudi, wherein they had got about 125 oxygen concentrators, which we distributed to many, outside Bangalore and inside Bangalore for many of the PSCs and different hospitals and individuals. And we are also doing an oxygen bank. I think all these things is where I think we have to, Rotary has to address. And especially, I think, let me thank you, Bridge Mohan and Skyrocket President Bridge Mohan and the whole team for doing this on a continuous basis and bringing the doctors. And they are the people who are so busy, and even at this part of time, they are sparing time, and they're real COVID warriors. And I have seen that many of the doctors, they have been strapped, because my brother is also one of the doctors who has been a consultant for Columbia, Hebal, and I've been seeing their life, and really they're all taking risk more than us, and they have been serving to save many human lives. So let me salute each one of you for saving so many lives at this part of time. And I'm sure in a short time, we'll all come out of this. As I say that, every pandemic which happens after lapse of many years, it is a tsunami, it's an earthquake, or any pandemic, I think what happens is we all get mentally more strong. We should get mentally more strong, think positive, and then things will definitely, because what I've seen is many people get disturbed, when such things happen, that leads to a different problems. I feel that this is a time where people have to be more mentally strong and fight this, and definitely we'll all come out of this this particular pandemic, and we will see a bright future. Good days ahead. May not be too many months, but maybe a short time. We'll all have a better days to look at it, and let's protect our younger generation and give them what has to be given and tell them what has to be done, and save each one of them, because they are the future of our country. So thank you very much on behalf of the district. for continuously running this program and educating people. Thank you. And I also thank all the doctors who are here on this panel and who have been doing this. And also Sridhar, I think, who has been doing the coordination and MC for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nagendra Prasad, the Governor of Bangalore. Kind words, motivational words, and commendable job by Rotary Bangalore and Rotary Yelahanka. They've been wonderful to show that humanity wins. Manava Dharma ellarkinta melu Manava Dharmakke jayavagli anta Dr. Nagendra Prasad avarige namma kೃತಜ್ಞತೆಗಳು ಈ ಕಾರ್ಯಕ್ರಮಕ್ಕೆ ತಾವು ನುಡಿಯನ್ನು ಮಾತಾಡಿದ್ದೀರಾ. I will ask Dr. Chandrasekhar to take on the next one. My question to him was, the third wave, is there a date that we can define? You can take over, Dr. Chandrasekhar. And thank you very much, Nagendra Prasad, for being kind and motivating us.
Yeah, namaskara ellarigu. Dr. Chandrasekhar Salimat anta heli, ನಾನು anesthetist. I am an anesthetist at Chikmagalur. Okay, we have all been hearing about the third oncoming wave, and that too, in the third wave, there is a talk that the pediatric population, especially the young kids, the young children at home, they are going to be likely to be more affected by this COVID pathology, and it might cause extensive suffering among the children. And definitely no one can tolerate, or no one can happen to see the children suffering in our family. The adults somehow, even though, yeah, the suffering is still there, but still it's somehow manageable. But pediatric suffering is something which we cannot really think about. Anyway, in India, it is still expected. There is a lot of assumptions going on that when it is going to hit us, it could be, some say it could be somewhere in the September, some says it could be as late as March 2022. But still, what we have noticed in now our practical experience is that during the last few months, we have been getting more and more pediatric cases, which was unlikely to be seen in the first wave. In the first wave, hardly we got any pediatric cases, and even if we got some cases too, they were totally asymptomatic. Most of them could be managed at home, or even if they needed admission, it was only for minor illnesses, or because of the apprehension and anxiety among the parents. But of late, we have been seeing quite a number of young children coming into our ICUs, coming into the hospitals, getting admitted with COVID. But still, we can't call the number of cases to be so significant that it can be called as a COVID third wave. I would like to ask upon my friends, Dr. Lalita or Dr. Rakesh Sharma, how is it there in the US? Have you experienced this third wave, especially in the pediatric population?
Yeah, this is Rakesh Sharma from New York. First of all, it's an honor to be with all of you, and
Thank you.
Good to see Mr. Nagendra Prasad. And I feel bad for anyone whose family member expired from COVID for no fault of theirs. And this morning I was watching a live program by anchor Sudhir Chaudhary, who himself suffered from COVID-19. To answer your question, we have been lucky in US that there has been no third wave. When we say waves, as we know, wave is not one or two infection in the hospital a day. This is a huge number of patients that come all of a sudden. And that has not happened in US in the last month or two. We did have second wave few months ago, but now it's just a tickling of infections all over the country, which is quite encouraging. I think California is still having much more than rest of the country is experiencing. New York is quite under control. So we are very lucky. That's number one. Number two, we have seen very little COVID-19 infection in children. When I say children, I would just cut-off line would be 12. Although in US, up to 18, people are called children in medical profession. And I think that's a mistake, because 18 was a driving age. So they took driving age as adult age. But we know people under the age of 12 behave differently. From 12 to 18, they behave almost like adults. So anyway, we have seen very, very few cases among children. Thank God. And the reason being that infection to children is actually transmitted by adults. So if children have been staying indoors and they only have contact with their parents or very close family members, that has been a plus point that children have been protected so far. That's number one. And number two, I also know that infection transmission from children to children or from children to adults is very inefficient, okay, which is a great news. If a child gets infected, he will have hard time transmitting it to the adult. Not very difficult, but it will be slightly difficult. So yes, we don't have enough infection among children, but teenagers are much more involved if we call them as children from the age of 12 to 18 or 19. Plenty of them had infection, but they all have been very mild. I've not seen any of them getting infection. Plus, there's one little difference that I want to point out between US and India. As you know, we have used a lot of monoclonal antibodies in people who were classified as COVID-19 infectious with very mild cases, whether they were children or adults. In fact, monoclonal antibodies have been used in children over the age of 12 if they were at high risk. And my own secretary's son, who is exactly 12, is overweight or obese. I had to send him to a big hospital, a tertiary care hospital, to receive monoclonal antibodies. So I would suggest that people who are in pediatrics, now monoclonal antibodies are available in India, and I heard they charge 60 to 7,000 rupees for the course, which is just a one-time intravenous infusion. And it should be given to children over the age of 12 who weigh minimum 40 kgs. And that will protect them from going from stage 1 or mild case to moderate or severe. And they work fantastic. There are 2 different combination monoclonal antibodies, and they can be used easily. That would be my big emphasis to the panel, that please tell all the hospitals that deal with pediatric population that 12 and over, as soon as you find an infectious case with high risk of going into a severe stage, they all should receive monoclonal antibodies. As we know, healthy children, if they get infection, they will be fine. Thank God for that, that most of the children who are healthy will not get into problem. That's why you don't see them in the hospitals. But obese, diabetic, like type 1 diabetic children, obese children, children with cystic fibrosis, children with very bad bronchial asthma, they should be given monoclonal antibodies. In short, we didn't see third wave. I'm glad. And in real pediatric population under 12, it is very much at low numbers. Teenagers are getting frequently, but since they are healthy, they don't get sick. Then we'll go to next portion about vaccine that I have a point to mention later on.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Rakesh. Actually, in India, we are still under the process of lockdown, as a result of which most of our schools are shut. And the extent of disease transmission among children because of the schools being closed is very less. Let apart COVID infections, even other respiratory tract infections, or also the incidence rate has come down severely. Most of the pediatricians OPDs are almost like they're not catering to much of the cases. Okay, and regarding monoclonal antibodies, yes, in India we have started getting monoclonal antibodies. At most of the places it is still available, but then a cost is a major criteria which limits its usage among the population. So right now it is being restricted for usage among the high-risk population. As you mentioned, most of the high-risk cases, whether pediatrics or adults, we have been using monoclonal antibodies to a great extent, and we have been quite happy with the performance of the monoclonal antibodies too. So before we move on, I just like to take a few minutes and try to highlight about COVID infections in pregnant ladies and COVID infections in lactating mothers, because it also comes somewhere along with pediatrics, I suppose. In the first wave, we didn't have much of pregnant ladies coming with COVID infection, but of late in the second wave, we have had a lot of antenatal cases coming with COVID positivity. Even some women are totally asymptomatic. We don't have any reason to think about COVID infection, but then when they are subjected to RT-PCR, as in these days, most of the elective surgeries as well as emergency surgeries, we do tend to do RT-PCR test. They have been found to be positive in many cases. So totally asymptomatic women, pregnant ladies who have been subjected to RT-PCR, they have come out as positive, and that leads to a dilemma. How do we go about managing them, whether we should consider them as active COVID cases, or there is a risk of transmission from these pregnant ladies to the newborns whom they are going to shortly deliver. Okay, especially if COVID happens to happen in the first trimester, it can have some implications on the organogenesis, the results of which are still yet to be studied, because we have not had much of statistics regarding that. During the childbirth period, that is in the third trimester or in the later stages of pregnancy, we have certain dilemmas as to how to manage these cases, whether they should be taken up in the COVID OT or COVID labor room or in the non-COVID section. The most important thing we should be aware of is that during childbirth, any lady can land up either with normal delivery or with C-section. If it goes for C-section, there could be increased oxygen demands, increased oxygen requirements, especially when they are subjected to anesthesia. So we have had quite a few cases landing up with mortality too. The pregnant lady is delivered and then later on went in for respiratory distress and things like that. Okay, and there is the chance of contamination of the OT with the chance of transmission to the OT staff, the operating gynecologist, and to the pediatricians who are handling the newborns born through these COVID positive mothers. As of now, there is no vaccine available for COVID pregnant or for any pregnant lady as of now, because the trials have not been very satisfactory as of now. But for lactating mothers, definitely they are being encouraged to take these vaccines, which are available right now in India. Right, and I think we can move on to the next session. Dr. Mallikarjun will be talking about vaccines in pediatrics. Over to you, Dr. Mallikarjun.
Namaskara. Thank you, Dr. Chandrasekhar. I would request Mr. Abhijit to help me out with the slides, or can I share the slides?
Yeah. I think the slides are coming here, sir. Yeah, 5.
Shall I start? Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. Please continue, Dr. Mallikarjun.
Okay. My talk is going to be on practical tips on COVID vaccination, special focus on children. Next slide, please. Yeah, I would like to make this session more of a question and answer rather than a theoretical part with the practical tips. First thing would be the target. This talk is mainly meant for the public and the parents. And it's more of going to be with the common words. Firstly, the vaccine. Vaccine is like a teacher. It teaches our body or our immune system how to fight against the infections or how to fight against to prevent the infection by the virus and the bacteria. Let us go to the target, how this vaccine works. Next slide, please. As Dr. Padma said, now each and everybody, they know that what is SARS-CoV virus and how it looks. So my main aim here is what the vaccine does. The target of most of the vaccines available are the spike proteins. Spike proteins are the knob-like structures which you can see in red color. They are the ones which are necessary for the virus to attack a body and infect. So most of the vaccines, they go on destroying the spike proteins. That's the target. Next slide, please. What are the vaccines currently in use? Let me just list out the vaccines that are available at present. We have Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine, which is mRNA-based vaccine, Moderna, then Covishield, AstraZeneca, Sputnik V, Johnson & Johnson, and Sinovac, Novavax, and Covaxin, of which the blue-colored ones, it's Covishield, Oxford vaccine, Sputnik vaccine, and Covaxin are the ones which are available for Indian population. And as you can see, with the Pfizer and the Moderna for the Indian population, the storage temperature is quite low, -60 to -80 degrees, which makes it a bit difficult for the Indian population to start off with this vaccination, rather than our own vaccine of Covishield and Covaxin, where the storage is quite comfortable and it's very easy to go on with it. Next slide, please. Vaccines for children. Of course, vaccines for children, mainly now, if you see, the only one vaccine which is available is Pfizer vaccine, currently in use in children more than 12 years of age in US, Europe, European countries, Middle East and Asia Pacific. Whereas Covaxin, our own Indian vaccine, the trial has just started in the first week of June in 4 major cities. As per yesterday's news is concerned, the AIIMS partner, they've completed the first phase of trial of the age group 12 to 18 years, and the second and third phase of categories 6 to 12 and 2 to 6 is still pending. So till we know the result, will not be going on with the vaccination. Next slide, please. Why vaccinate children? Next slide. Okay, vaccinating children is now looking into the trend of vaccination from the most susceptible, that's the aged people, to then 45 plus, and now the left out people are the children. One is to protect from getting COVID-19, and also more than getting, it's more of preventing the severe illness, and also to prevent spread of infection. As we know, the kids are super spreaders at present. They're the susceptible people who can be infected, and then they go on infecting the others. And more than that, it's to protect the health of the broader community, so-called herd immunity or population immunity, wherein the herd immunity, by vaccinating at least 70% of the population, we can prevent the spread of infection even to the non-vaccinated people. Next slide, please. What are the side effects? As we know, almost all the vaccines have got some of the other side effects, and it's not new with COVID vaccine also. There are two different set of side effects. One is at the injection site, and the other one is general. Injection site, we have pain, redness, and swelling. For general, we have fever, tiredness, headache, muscle pain, vomiting, and loose stools. Next slide, please. What about the routine vaccinations during pandemic? This is the question which most of the parents ask, what do we do with the routine vaccinations? Yes, all the routine vaccinations should be administered as scheduled, because knowing with the previous experiences, if the kids don't take the routine vaccination, along with COVID, there are possibilities that there can be breakdown of the other vaccine preventable diseases which have been under control due to vaccination, routine vaccination. Next slide, please. Can the COVID vaccine be given along with other childhood or adolescent vaccines? Next slide. Currently, there are no available data on how the vaccines interact with other immunizations, whereas Center for Disease Control Advisory Panel says coronavirus vaccine could be given at the same time as other vaccines. Next slide, please. Any contraindications for COVID vaccine? Currently, all the available vaccines for COVID are either inactivated or weakened virus or nucleic acid-based vaccines, hence no obvious contraindications. But yes, there are certain temporary contraindications, like Dr. Rakesh Sharma was mentioning about monoclonal antibodies. The children or even the adults who have been in the ICU treated with monoclonal antibodies, they need to wait at least for 3 months before they receive the vaccine. Next slide, please. Is it necessary to follow COVID appropriate behaviors even after vaccination? Next slide. Yes, COVID appropriate behavior, now most of us, or even most of us know what is COVID appropriate behavior. That is mainly wearing the mask, frequent hand washing, and then social distance. Vaccine is considered effective at least 2 weeks after the last dose. At least they have to wait at least for 2 weeks. Yes, at least in the crowded places and in the special circumstances, COVID appropriate behavior is a must. Next slide. If I have already had COVID and recovered, do I still need to get vaccinated? If yes, when? Yes, still it is necessary to be vaccinated, at least after a gap of 2 weeks to 3 months, depending on the severity of the infection that the child or the person had. Next slide. I think that should conclude my talk. No one is safe until everyone is safe. Queries, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Mallikarjun. I think the take-home message is, as of now, in the Indian scenario, there are no pediatric COVID vaccines right now under the age of 18 years that is still available for the general population. There have been certain trials going on, but still no vaccine is approved as of now for vaccination in the pediatric age group. Dr. Rakesh or Dr. Lalita, how is the scenario there in US? Are you vaccinating your children?
Dr. Lalita?
Yes.
Dr. Lalita,
Dr.
hi, sorry
Salivat.
to welcome you late. You can
no.
go ahead with your best practices in US and answer Chandrasekhar's question. Lalita, over to you. Then we
Yes.
have some questions to Dr. Sharma also.
Good evening, everyone. It's a honor to be part of this forum. I really enjoyed listening to Dr. Padma Prakash, and I wanted to actually, share one sentiment from what I noted down. She did report that GI symptoms were being seen more, in children or in adults. And before I forget, I wanted to, make a comment that is a pattern we also saw in US last year. Like after the respiratory system, it is the GI symptoms that were being recorded more. So thanks for giving me that opportunity. I wanted to respond to that before I forget. So now coming back to the question of vaccine situation here, Dr. Rakesh Sharma put it so well. We are lucky, we are blessed that we are at a place where infection is very low. In fact, in the state of Illinois, we are totally going to open up. So Illinois means I'm in the Chicago area. Dr. Sharma is in the New York area. And probably California is still lagging behind, but we are very lucky. We consider ourselves lucky. So the vaccination rate right now here is 50% of the adults. And to cut the chase, I made bullet points. So what the target is, the target for vaccination rate is 70%. So if 7 to 8 out of 10 people are vaccinated, then we get herd immunity. And once we get herd immunity, that way the hope is we protect our children. There is no vaccine. I mean, we got vaccine authorized sometime last month for children between 12 to 16 years. So we are not vaccinating children less than 12 years. And Dr. Sharma, correct me if I'm wrong in any of the comments, because data is so changing by the minute on COVID, not just in US, in India, everywhere across the globe. So that's,
you're right. Yeah, you are right. Only above the age of 12. I just want to correct our friends from India that our mRNA vaccines have been approved for people over the age of 16, not 18. That's one thing. And now above the age of 12, only Pfizer has been approved, not any other vaccine.
Yes, Dr. Sharma, thank you for the addition. Yes, it's only the Pfizer vaccine, which actually Dr. Mallikarjun Swami presentation covered it so well. Dr. Swami, that was a great presentation.
So as of now, in India, there are no Pfizer vaccine is still not available. So we are still not immunizing any child less than 18 years as of now. Yeah.
Sir, I have a question, a very basic elementary question to Dr. Sharma. I am a non-medical person. The question is, have children developed immunity in wave 1 and wave 2? So do they really require to be vaccinated below the age of 12? Dr. Rakesh Sharma.
Excellent question. I think even Dr. Fauci or anyone who has the best brain in the world may not be able to answer that question, but I'll try to attempt. So far as we know, in US, only 16 and above were getting vaccinated. And recently, last month, 12 and above can be vaccinated with Pfizer. So under 12, no one needs to be, or no one has been authorized to get vaccination. But I'll give you 2-3 little examples, especially for the public. Cleveland Clinic did a study recently where they followed 1,360 people who had infection with COVID-19. These are adults, and none of them got reinfection. So I would try to underline this point for the public and for the physicians. Please do not listen to pharmaceutical companies. They are in the business to make money. Why am I saying that? I'm a little blunt. If all the people followed by Cleveland Clinic who had infection in their lives in the last year or so did not get reinfection, what it's telling us is after you get infection, your immunity is very, very strong. Okay? It's so powerful. The chances are it may last for years or forever. We don't know. So if you had infection, you are saved. Yes, CDC has suggested that after infection, you can wait for 2-3 weeks and get vaccination. 6 months ago, they were saying after 3 months of infection, you should get vaccination. And my gut feeling, looking at all the data, is if you had infection from COVID-19, relax, you are not going to get reinfection. But will that last for a year, 2 or 5? No one knows. So don't buy anybody's explanation. Second question is, do we really need a vaccine for children under the age of 12? Children, as we know, are very resilient. Even if they got infection, mostly nothing happens to them. We are talking about healthy children under the age of 12. I'm not talking about type 1 diabetic people or extremely obese or bronchial asthma, cystic fibrosis, or some kind of underlying immunocompromise like juvenile rheumatoid arthritis or cancer. That's a totally different class. But under 12, children are not going to get sick. I think there have been only reports of 36 deaths in children. So they will be fine. So don't rush for vaccination for children under the age of 12. And if someone really wants vaccination, even up to the age of 16 or 18, studies have shown that if you are infected, you will have nice, powerful antibodies and protection. You really don't need 2 vaccines. This is a very new study that came out. You will be okay just with 1 shot of COVID-19 vaccine. You don't need 2. And all the studies that have been done in teenagers or they are doing in children, it's 100%, all the vaccines are 100% effective. So what it's teaching us is either the dose is too big or we are giving too quickly means small interval between 2 shots, or kids don't need 2 shots. If they ever need anything, it will be just 1 shot of vaccine. So don't listen to pharmaceutical companies. That's all I can say in a very nice layman's language.
Thanks, Dr. Rakesh Sharma. Many parents are happy because you've given a very thoughtful word saying that children can be avoided giving things. Dr. Lalita, can you just give me the best practices? There are schools open across US, Germany. What are the precautions they're taking when the schools are opened there? Because in India, we are seeing that we don't have school, schooling is online. They don't have the play and fun activity at school. So what is the practice happening there in US, Lalita? on the
So-
schooling front?
So again, I made it in a 3-line statement. So we call the W's.
Yeah.
So one is wear a mask, watch your step, and wash your hands. So I tried to translate it in Kannada too. So mask hakoli, kai tolkoli, ninna nodi. Or maybe the step can, we can change it to walk, nadka nodi or something.
No.
So these are the 3 important, take home messages that need to be spread over and over and over to all the families and, all the community, throughout the community. So those are the 3 W's that I wanted to share here.
Dr. Chandrasekhar?
Yeah, can I ask a question to the pediatricians? Of late, there has been a lot of discussion regarding the role of influenza vaccines in preventing COVID infection in children. So can any of our pediatricians share some details regarding this?
I'll take up the question, Dr. Chandrasekhar. Actually, flu vaccine and the role of it preventing the COVID, as per the current data or the current studies, there is no role of flu vaccine to prevent or to avoid getting the COVID vaccination. So there is no role for flu vaccine, of course.
Okay, thank you. But I mean, of late, what we have seen is there has been a lot of queue up for the flu vaccine shots in a sense that it's also going to protect against COVID. So I wanted to make things more clear regarding that. And Dr. Rakesh, I would differ in a small way, in a sense that, yeah, once you're infected with COVID, yes, the chances of you acquiring infection again would be to a certain extent less, and that too for a short period. It's not that it's going to be like you're not going to land up with COVID infection at all. I would suggest that the public, whoever have got COVID infection, still please continue wearing mask, follow social distancing, and try to keep yourself protected by taking all the measures that are necessary. Because I personally have come across a few cases wherein those who have got infected in the first cycle, in the second wave also, they have landed up with a repeat infection in spite of having been vaccinated too. Yeah, Dr. Prashant?
Yeah.
Can we go ahead with the questions?
Yeah. Dr. Padma there? From Dr. Padma?
Yeah, tell me, I'm here.
Dr. Padma, Indian families are joint families. Indian families live with their parents, grandparents, and the children are there part of we have no more a nuclear family. We are joint families. We live in bigger families. Can you just highlight what precautions we can take in a joint family scenario, and when a grandfather or grandmother kind of infections happen? So with your experience, Dr. Padma, especially Indian families, focusing on Indian families where grandparents are there, parents are there, it's a joint family. So what kind of precautions we need to take when they're exposed to these kinds of things, especially children?
Yeah, very good question. See, in joint families, if both the parents are working, they have to have the working discipline. Once they go home to the working places, when the return is more important. So they have to have this their personal hygiene. And when the children come immediately, like once they return from the office, they have to guide them how to behave with the COVID appropriate manner, that is the social distance. Or once they fresh up, then only they have to have contact with the children. Number 2, like normal, however they lead their normal life, they can lead the same. But if one of the parent is working, the other one, so it holds good same. Like once they come from the office, they have to have all the personal hygiene. But whenever the question, more important question is that if one child is positive, where parents and grandparents are negative, or the vice versa, like parents are positive, the child is negative. So the such scenarios we have to handle very well. Because in tertiary, 3-tier cities or 2-tier cities, we come across with home isolation. The second wave, during second wave, they had the BPMPs to come inspect whether they have facility for home isolation, like a separate washroom with a room. So they used to inspect and they used to advocate for the home isolation. But when you go little rural side, so we do have a lot of problems with sanitation or the facilities to have a separate room when the patient, whether the child or the one of the family member becoming positive. Such is a case that they have to go for COVID care centers. So other activities, whatever the activities are happening can happen. The question arises only when the patient, whether the child or the elder person is positive. Such time they should take care only in the COVID care centers, or depending upon the severity of the infection, they cannot be home isolated when the facilities are not at all available. Otherwise, just they can need a normal life.
Thanks, Dr. Padma. Dr. Chandrasekhar, go ahead with your medical questionnaire on the medical side.
One more thing, what we encountered practically during our practical experience is that whenever you have a child who is COVID positive, it is very important to search for other COVID positive persons in the family. Most often, this child might have acquired infection from the elders in the family who are more likely to go out, who are more likely to come into contact with COVID cases. So search for COVID cases in the family. It could be either of the parents or the grandparents who have been with whom the child has been living together. So it is important to search for other COVID patients, COVID persons in the family too. Right.
Dr. Rakesh, we have a question from a very commoner here, basically concerning the diet of the children. You did express that obese children are a little prone, but is there a special immunity food that you would like to recommend for the Indian children?
Now, being a healthy person means you have been eating well, and you need to continue to do that, especially in any infection or pandemic. You need to watch your diet much more for 2-3 reasons. Number one, we all know that most of the cases, at least in first wave of COVID-19 that we saw who were hospitalized, were obese or diabetics. About 70% cases in US in the first wave were either obese or diabetic, or when you say diabetic, some of them did not know they had diabetes. They had impaired fasting glucose, or pre-diabetic people. So diet is important for those people who are already obese, who have a glucose issue, whether pre-diabetic or diabetic. So they need to watch their diet much, much more than healthy people. In healthy individuals, normal weight, does it really matter? I would take a little different approach. Yes, it's great to have great diet, but will better diet protect you from infection? The answer is no. 90% of people may not agree with me, but that's the answer. Whether you want to take more zinc, more vitamin C, or you take anything else, will that protect you from COVID-19 infection if you are exposed? No, it will not. But should we eat healthy diet? Absolutely. Less carbohydrates, a little bit more protein during COVID pandemic. Healthy diet means more veggies, more fruits, less processed meat. There have been some reports that some of the Indian spices are very good. We know turmeric is good. We know amla is very good. We know ginger is very good. Do they really prevent the infection? I don't know. I will not endorse. Am I telling my patients to take zinc, vitamin C, multivitamin or anything? I do not, but 90% doctors do. So please eat healthy. That's all I can say. Children, same healthy, give them healthy diet, let them exercise. Exercise is also very important to protect yourself because just being lazy, sitting home, since it's a lockdown period, is not helpful. So you need to exercise maybe in your backyard or in your neighborhood. Just walk a mile or so instead of eating vitamin C.
Yeah, excuse me. Can I just continue to Dr.
Dr. Chandrasekhar, go ahead.
Like Dr. Rakesh,
I had a question to you also, Dr. Chandrasekhar.
Yeah, of course. Before that, let me just touch upon the nutrition part in children.
Yeah.
Number one, of course, as you mentioned about the nutritious diet. And number two is hydration. In children, we forget to take care about the hydration, which is very important. As they are locked down and they're inside the home, they tend not to drink more water or any liquids for that matter. So that should be taken care of. And number three is the diet should also be in concern towards avoiding the constipation, because they're more at home and then not much of activities. They tend to be constipated, which can go with further complications or further issues. So the constipation should be taken care of by adequate physical activities and adequate roughage in the diet. And of course, the fruits and vegetables to add on with the micronutrients. I think that should be taken care of. Yeah, that should be fine.
Thanks, Mallikarjun. Dr. Chandrasekhar, can you just throw some light to where the, I'm getting a lot of messages here. Is Chyawanprash, like Dr. Rakesh said, Amla? Can you speak on Chyawanprash?
I have a simple question.
Yeah, immunity builder, you know, can you speak on that?
Yeah. There have been a lot of things which have claimed to be immune boosters, right from starting from Chyawanprash or starting from so many other medications from trusted sources and untrusted sources too. I still believe, like personally, one should use the naturally available foods in the form of fresh fruits, fresh vegetables, good milk and good nutritious diet, rather than trust upon this Ayurvedic thing. Of course, I'm an allopathic doctor. I don't have the rights to comment about allopathic, non-allopathic medicines. Suppose, yes, if you have been using some of these products from a long time and you are comfortable with using it, I think you can go ahead, but then don't be taken in by the advertisement or the propaganda that has been put up by various sources regarding its efficiency in protecting against diseases. Just look at things with a suspicious eye and take a decision. I have one of the questions from one of our audiences. It's a very simple question, day to day on a practical management. They say that their child had the prodromal symptoms of throat ache and fever, and now they have tested, their child has come out as positive. So how do you manage? What do you advise? Do you want us to home isolate the child, or you want to go to the hospital? And yes, what are the things that we expect? Is the line of management, in a sense, evaluation is going to be the same as that of the adult? So one of our pediatricians can take this question.
Can I take up, or can you take up, Dr. Padma? Or
yeah, I will take up. I'll take up.
Yeah.
So depending upon, as already Dr. Mallikarjun was saying, see, depending upon whenever the child is infected, we have to look into the source. Like other family members having any prodromal signs and symptoms, even they need to get tested. And second one, better they have to consult a pediatrician, because they need to examine. Number one, if they are very afraid to fear of visiting the hospital, even lot of video consultations are there. Online consultation with the pediatrician is mandatory. They will take a decision whether it is a mild or a moderate. They will look, when you go physical is better, because they have to examine what is the vitals of the child, whether the breathing rate or the pulse rate or the saturation or the weight of the child, the previous immunization. So clinical, apart from the clinical examination, they to take the history also. So I think better they have to consult a pediatrician. So depending upon the findings, physical findings, they will take a call whether it is a mild case or a moderate case. Then we can take a decision depending upon the facilities at the home to go for home isolation, or if they require admission.
Thanks, Dr. Padma. Dr.
Rakesh. Can I just add on to Dr. Padma's comment?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, number one, of course, like Dr. Chandrasekhar said, has been tested positive, a child. So number one would be, don't panic, keep calm. Number two, if they're scared to go to a hospital or consult a doctor, let the parent themselves look at the child. Is the child comfortable, breathing comfortably? And if they have pulse oximeter facilities, they can just keep monitoring the saturation. And then, of course, there's something called 6-minute walk test, which most of you might be knowing. If the child is around 15 years plus, you can always go with 6 minutes walk test. You can ask the child to walk for 6 minutes, though it's difficult to make them walk continuously for 6 minutes, and check the saturation after 6 minutes. If the saturation is falling less than 94%, or if it is falling 3% less than the previous reading, definitely it's an indication that then they should consult the doctor.
Thanks.
But above all, it's just keep calm. Don't be panicky.
But this will work out only in the
CT
pulse oximeter very difficult to do in the rural areas.
Okay. Dr. Rakesh Sharma.
Is CT scan safe for pediatric age group?
Definitely no. No CT chest advocated.
Dr. Rakesh, we have a very elementary question, rumor kind of a question. Is COVID is in the air? Is it being transmitted in the air? Lot of participants are asking this question. So is there anything that you would like to tell the public in large? Is COVID in air that we breathe? Is it transmitted through air? What can you just throw some light on that, Dr. Rakesh Sharma?
Sure, absolutely. If let's say you are sitting with 5 people and someone has COVID infection, 1 out of those 5, and you're sitting 4, 5, 6, 7 feet away, and that person is talking loud or coughing or sneezing, will you catch it from that person if you don't have a mask on, or maybe some risk even with the mask? Answer is yes. If the person is 20 feet away, 30 feet away in a different room and is coughing, and that person is infected, will that virus travel 30 feet away to you or hang out in the room for next half an hour? The answer is no. It's not in the air like that. It is only being transmitted to you while directly coming from that person's mouth or nose, and you inhale it right away. If he coughs it and it's on the table and you touch the table half hour later, are you going to get that virus? My personal answer is no, but I'll tell you, there will be plenty of genius people in this world who will differ with me. And I'll give you one little case. Very early on in March last year, there was a cruise ship that was supposed to land at San Francisco. You all may remember. There were more than 400 people on the cruise ship, and they found 18 people who were infected. So that ship was not allowed to come to the port for 21 days. So all the people were quarantined for 21 days in San Francisco area. So they were kept in the sea. After 21 days, ship was allowed to come. So everybody was taken off, tested, and they found only 18 people were infected. Later on, they checked each and every cabin of that ship. They found coronavirus on the surfaces of tables and chairs, on the beds and sheets. So this just easily tells me that people don't get infection just because virus was on the table or on the chair. It has to be, in my mind, it has to be quite wet at that time when you inhale or touch it. If I sneeze on the table and you come within 2-3 minutes while it's wet and you touch your nose with the same hand, yes, you might get infected. Otherwise, it's not floating in the air. It drops on the ground right away after you sneeze or talk, and it will not be flying for next 20 minutes. So you are absolutely safe after that.
Thanks, Dr. Rakesh. We have Dr. Krishna Prasad, a very senior neurologist here. I welcome on this discussion here. Dr. Krishna Prasad, you're there? Dr. Krishna Prasad?
I'm very much here. I'm very much
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir. Welcome to this discussion. We have Rakesh Sharma, Chandrasekhar, Mallikarjun, many doctors from US, India. Please go ahead, sir. Share your thoughts, share your best practices and your good learnings in the last 1 year or so after COVID. Go ahead, sir.
Let me first, very glad to meet Dr. Prashant, whom I saw on the TV last year.
I'm not a doctor, sir. I'm just moderating the show. I'm not a doctor.
But you are a doctor on some other thing. Anyway, that apart.
Thank you.
That apart. My experience regarding fighting the COVID has been rather minimal, but I've been actively involved in the discussions. I participated in this meeting, 3 times in the last few weeks.
Yes.
So then, I keep discussing with many of mine. The question about reinfection, Dr. Rakesh Sharma has thrown his light on people getting infected once and not getting reinfected. But we've had few people who have been infected once, our own chief minister for that matter, and even the chief minister of Himachal Pradesh, who were infected within a span of 60 days or so. And mind you, they never got hospitalized. That is one thing. Another question which I have is, suppose a patient has received 1 dose of infection, where his immunity level is not very high, and he happens to contract an infection which is active. Now, obviously, his vaccination, the 2nd dose would be delayed. Now, the question is, as Dr. Rakesh Sharma put it across, that this particular infection would give a better immunity, long-lasting immunity than compared to, would a second dose or the booster dose, what we can call, is it advisable as of now, or we don't have enough information on this particular subgroup, number one. So this is another thing which I need to. And also I would like to say, I have a couple of examples in my own relative circle, wherein people, my own cousin, in spite of not being exposed to active corona patients, he acquired infection and he was at home working from home as an engineer, and then he had contracted infection and he had all the manifestations, though he did not need hospitalization. These are a few anecdotal reports, I do agree, but what has come to my mind, I'm just putting it across. So there could be certain exceptions, and also there are a lot of examples where people have not had any exposure, no travel history, no, still, getting infected and then, having mild symptoms, managing at home. So these are some of the queries which I had and my observation, which I thought is worth mentioning in this group.
Can I answer that question?
Go
Sure.
ahead, sir. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, it's a concern. And as you know, whether it's a social media or among our professional circles, every information is not correct. By the way, I don't claim to be super intelligent or genius. So each and everything I say may not be 100% correct either. I have been involved with COVID-19 from first week of March 2020. I have not seen a single patient in my hospital who was infected and recovered and came back with reinfection. I did quote Cleveland Clinic. They followed 360 people who recovered from COVID-19 infection, did not take vaccination. So this, when I say this with underlined words, we have more data on people who have been infected than people who have been vaccinated, because vaccination only started in December. Infection started actually in US, started in February 2020 in Seattle. So we have been following those patients. So in 16 months of following those patients by Cleveland Clinic, not a single person got reinfected. That's number one. When people claim that someone got reinfected 60 days later or so, I think you just mentioned some CM of Himachal Pradesh. The mistake that medical professionals have been making is political mistake. When we test someone and we prove that person is infected, a month later, 2 months later, we are forced to test that person again with PCR test, and we get the virus in the nose or in the throat. But that's a dead virus. That person has already recovered. Can virus hide in the nose for next 2 months? Absolutely. So we are testing that dead virus again, and we are telling the public that this person is reinfected. You are not going to get reinfection in a month, 2, 3, or 6. I can give you in writing. And when Dr. Shekhar claimed that he saw few patients who got reinfected, I really doubt that. And yes, after vaccination, can you get infection? Absolutely, because vaccinations are not 100% effective. Even Moderna and Pfizer says 92 to 95%. They are telling you 5% to 8% chances are that you will catch infection. Your own Covaxin and Covishield are even 80, 85%. So you are giving 15, 20% room for the infection. So after vaccination, you will get infection if you're unlucky. But after you get infection, you are not going to get reinfection. I can write you at least for a year or two. For 16-month data we have, I don't think you are going to get reinfection. It's very powerful. And one other thing before we all forget, it's not just the antibody level or titer. People will tell you, oh, your antibody titer is going down. Great. Who cares? The real protection from Moderna or from Pfizer, and I'm sure even with Covaxin, doesn't just come from the titer itself. It also comes from the memory of B cells and T cells. Once you have been vaccinated, those cells have the memory of the vaccine, and chances are you are going to be protected for years. God knows, maybe for the rest of your life, because if those cells are alive in you and they memorize the code word, how to attack the virus, then you are fine. No one knows it yet because vaccines are only 8 months old. Study, even 9-month study has not come out.
True.
So please don't listen to Pfizer CEO. Please don't listen to Dr. Fauci. Okay, I'm sorry to say that. I'm not Fauci. I'm not at his level. But these people make premature statements.
Thanks, Dr. Rakesh Sharma. There's a question to Lalita. There's a very funny question, but I would like to ask this. Can we take 2 types of vaccines? There are some, just to protect ourselves. Dr. Lalita.
No, it should be only one type of vaccine. If you are taking the first dose of Pfizer, you should take the second dose of Pfizer.
There's a question that's coming from the general public, just passing
Or
on.
if you're taking your Covishield, first dose of Covishield, then you take dose of Covishield, yeah.
There's another question for Dr. Padma. Dr. Padma, can you just throw some light on lactating mothers, on breastfeeding mothers, and vaccine for them? Because when children and mother, so there's a correlation there. So can you just throw some light, Dr. Padma, especially on breastfeeding mothers? Can they take vaccine?
Yeah, breastfeeding mothers, it is mandatory. They have to get vaccine done. Whether it is a Covishield or Covaxin, whichever the available vaccine, they have to go ahead with that. And lactating mothers, they have to make one point clear that they wash their hands before feeding the baby, and preferably they wear the mask. N95 is ideal. Otherwise, they can wear any surgical mask. After the latest, we are coming across, even they can wear a face shield. Because the mothers know, some of them, they'll be talking to the babies while feeding. So it is better they cover their face with the face shield. So these are more important points. And now they say even the rooming in, what we call that when the mothers feed the baby is also with the mother. So earlier, like, last year COVID, during the wave 1, they used to say that the mother has to feed the baby and remaining time they have to, the attendant, the caregiver should take care of the baby. But during the second wave, there are a lot of changes. The guidelines have been like, we are upgrading the guidelines, saying that mother also should stay with the baby rooming in, so that they allow both bonding. There is a bonding between mother and the baby when they stay in the same room together. So it is absolutely very much important that lactating mother has to feed the baby, and they have to have all the guidelines. They have to follow hand wash, mask, face shield, they have to follow.
Thanks, Dr. Padma.
And more nutrition is important. Hydration and nutrition part is very important to the mothers, lactating mothers.
Dr. Rakesh Sharma, you are in New York. There's a question from travelers. We have a passport, we have a visa, we have a travel ticket. Do the vaccine passport, COVID allowed people who've been vaccinated in India with COVID shield allowed into US? Is a question that's coming in from the general public.
God, I wish you had not asked me this question. I think the mistake that Covaxin people of Bharat biotech people made was, I read about it, not that I'm an expert, but what they did was when they started phase 3 in late October, they applied for approval of EUA, and in January they were granted approval to vaccinate people by Government of India. At that time, third phase results were not even done or out. So most of the countries were, or the people who are in research business know that you cannot be approved, or you should not be approved before you have complete data. So one of the drug evaluators from Brazil raised this issue, and that gave a very bad name to Bharat Biotech company that makes Covaxin. But their data came out sometime in April, and which shows that it is effective against prevention of COVID-19 infection. But the damage was done on the reputation early on. And I also heard that CEO of that company, when asked that question, did not answer the question directly. Instead, he said it's a political pressure. You might feel sometimes, that Western countries are putting pressure on you because you're not a white nation, which is fine.
Got it, sir.
Yeah, but he should have explained the process that, hey, listen, we followed the guidelines very closely, and this is the proof, which he didn't. So now it's going to take some time for the other countries to realize after their own scientific community looks at the data of Covaxin and its effectiveness, that it's a good vaccine, it's going to protect. And not only that's good, what I have read is it's also good against the variants that are emerging in India. So, but this political process might take a couple of months before they said, yes, you have Covaxin, you are allowed to enter US or so.
Thank you, Dr.
There is
Rakesh
another
Sharma.
question related here. From Dr. Nirupama, she has asked, hello, doctor, we are from USA. We have taken 2 doses of Sinopharm vaccine. Now the health ministry, is suggesting us to take Pfizer vaccine as a booster dose. Is it safe and advisable?
Which vaccine did she take?
She has already taken 2 doses of Sinopharm vaccine.
Okay.
But now the health ministry is suggesting to take Pfizer vaccine again as a booster dose.
Sinopharm is a Chinese vaccine?
Chinese, that's
okay.
right.
Now, if I was US official, I would not trust Chinese vaccine myself. It's just a joke. So yeah, they are kind of right. In USA, there's, very much mistrust about China. So Chinese vaccine, I'm not sure. So if you want to visit a country, it's not your right, by the way. It's just not your right. You are being granted a visa. So if country US says, hey, you got to take the other vaccine, believe me, you cannot enter. Just to go offline, I was born in India. I was raised in India, went to medical school there, came here at the age of 25. I cannot enter India today without getting visa from Indian embassy.
True.
Okay, because we don't have dual citizenship. In fact, if I enter New Delhi airport right now with expired visa, they will ship me back from the airport. They won't even give me a light of the day.
I got it.
With my name, I cannot be a terrorist. I'm pure Hindu, right? But they don't care.
Yeah,
so if you want to come to US, please oblige them with whatever they want.
Yeah. Rakesh Sharma, Dr. Rakesh, thank you very much. Now, I think we have the multiple questions coming in. I think we need more time to do it. I think Team Yelahanka Rotary 4th session is required. Now I ask Mr. Ramesh from Yelahanka Rotary to speak, because we are nearing the close of the entire discussion. Ramesh, Ramesh, go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Prashant.
Yeah.
So I'm Ramesh Shivanna, President for the Rotary Green Park and also represent Chronic Foundation. So we had today a very highly informative session, and there is a lot of misinformation that circulates regarding the vaccine for COVID. So we all believe this is need of our to educate each one to get immunity and save from coronavirus. And we had today Dr. Rajesh Sharma, Doctor Critical Care Medicine, joined from New York, Dr. Lalita, Internal Medicine from Alliance, Dr. Mallikarjun Swami, Pediatric, returned from Kuwait, in fact, recently, and now he's in Mysore. And also we had a doctor from Karnataka who carry ground reality experience from the Karnataka in this pandemic panics. Dr. Padma Prakash, she is a doctor in neonotechnology in Aster, and also runs hospitals in Dudbalapur. Dr. Chandrasekhar Salimat, Dr. Anastasia in Chikmagalur. So with these set of eminent doctors, we had a wonderful session and information shared by their best clinical practices and also experiences. And I am sure many of you got clarified all your doubts. So one thing I can make out from many corona survivors, what they need is actually mental and emotional support along with the medical care. I am sure this series of discussions from different doctors from different part of the world, so will help to address these challenges. So the last 2 series gave deep insights into the corona and fungus infection, and also revealed some interesting facts. So the knowledge sharing for the COVID pandemic is very much necessary now. And today, the 3rd session also gave deep insights on the vaccines. And I thank each doctor and panelists who have been part of this today, taken time, being even different time zone, some people. So we are all today you are here and enlighten us. Thank you very much for all the doctors who participated in this today's panel. And most importantly, today we had a celebrity moderator, most popular person in Karnataka now. In fact, hot celebrity now we can call him, man of the big boss.
Thanks, Dr. Mr. Ramesh. 3 cheers to Abhijit, Brij Mohan, and the entire Yelahanka team for conducting this amazing questionnaire, webinar, whatever we call it, group discussion, information, best practices. I request Abhijit and Brij Mohan from the Yelahanka team to conduct another one. So much of information. I could see the number of mails, questions coming in, popping out. I am not able to reach each and every question, but I would request Brij Mohan to speak a few words. And,
I'll just finish this. So in fact, for next series also, we request you to come and moderate, because
100%. It's a noble cause. It's a service from my end. Dr. Rakesh Sharma has been extraordinary. Dr. Lalita, Dr. Chandrasekhar, Dr. Padma, Dr. Mallikarjun Swami, all have given their thoughts. People have noted down. They're sending me messages. We are writing it down, whatever they speak. So this is for the public. This is for Rotarians across the globe. This is for the general public. So Ramesh, thank you very much. And Brij Mohan and Abhijit, take over.
Thank you. Thank you, Prashant. Thanks for coming, joining today. And I also thank the district governor, who was he was actually very busy. In fact, in this, in spite of that busy, he was here with us. And thanks for the support from the district governor, Mr. Nagendra Prasad, Rotarian Nagendra Prasad. I also thank Rotarian Bridge President, Rotary Green Park, Abhijit, and members from Rotary Yelahanka, members from Rotary Green Park, Rotract Green Park, all the participants from Rotary 3190 and Rotract 3190, and team from Crony Foundation. I thank one and all. Thank you very much once again. And I'm sure we are continuing this similar series. So next week we'll all join, and we'll have a good sharing from all these experts, doctors. Thank you very much.
I would like to conclude the session by saying that if we handle the crisis very collectively, so to reap a successful tomorrow.
Well said, Dr. Padma. Thank you. Dr. Rakesh from US, thank you very much. Pleasure having your wisdom, your thoughts. Dr. Lalita, thank you very much. You have given us a good insight, and especially our own local doctors, the Karnataka stars, Dr. Mallikarjun and Dr. Chandrasekhar Salimat. Thank you very much. It's amazing information to the public in large. And thank you very much. I want the closing remarks from Abhijit, who started this program.
I would like to thank everyone. Thank you, Prashant, for conducting it seamlessly. As you rightly said, there were many people who are coming in with many more questions. We'll come up with many more such series. Thanks for the cooperation of all the doctors who readily accepted to be part of this. Thank you very much. Good night.
Good night. Good night. Good night, sir. Good night.
Good night. Thanks, all. Take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.